You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy. Okay? Sorry about that. Okay, let's get into it. Google today, October, I don't know the date, announced the Pixel 6. So they released the Pixel 6 today with all the details. They announced it a while back, a few months ago. They're doing a big marketing push. This is the first Pixel device, Google Android device, with a Google designed system on a chip. They call it Tensor. Now this is a huge deal because it's at least, it's 5 years in the making, and we'll get into this. It's got a whole bunch of, we'll dig in all the details, but a solid, they call it their first flagship device. It's the first device that they feel they can go to Samsung and go to Apple and say, hey, we're players now too, okay? I am that guy. Trust me, I am that guy. That's Google saying that now. They are ready, they're here to play, and as an Android developer, I come from the Android world, was an Android developer for several years, don't do it as much anymore. I am very, very interested. The Pixel line's very near and dear to my heart. I'm an iPhone user right now. I've used Pixel. I've used nearly every Pixel. Big fan. So let's fucking dive into this. Boom. If you don't know, this is the No Gradient Podcast. My name is Dick Lucas. You can find it wherever podcasts are available. Just search No Gradient. We're also on YouTube. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, Dick C. Lucas. Always post there when a new show drops. Please rate, subscribe, rate on Apple Podcasts. And like on YouTube and subscribe on YouTube. I'm trying to grow something here. Would really appreciate the support. Thank you. Okay, so here we go. Let's get into what I'm going to talk about today is what we announced, what was announced, and then I'm going to give my feelings on it. And then there's a great interview by Dieter Bohn of The Verge. I really value his opinion on Android. I value MKBHD, Marquez Brownlee on YouTube as well, but he does a really, really good job. Great writer for The Verge, and really like the way he thinks about Android. He had an interview with Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, and Rick Osterloh, who is the head of hardware at Google, who's been there for 5 years now. Really interesting interview. We'll get into that. But first, let's just go to the nitty-gritty, what was announced, and then I'll give my feelings on it. So I'm going to kind of go blitzkrieg. This is from a couple Verge articles. I'm going to quote from them. My opinion, they do great same-day reporting. When there's a big tech event, I think they do a phenomenal job. They're my go-to website for following like release day type news. They got great reviews of devices as well. But anyway, let's get into it. Okay, the Pixel 6 will sell for $599, and the Pixel 6 Pro will sell for $899. Now to put that in perspective, those are the two new devices they announced. Now to put that in perspective, the regular the iPhone 13 Pro is $999, the Max is $1099, and the regular iPhone is $699. So on the regular side, they got them beat by $100, and then the 6 Pro, which has a 6.7-inch screen, which is the same screen size as the Max, they've got them beat by a couple $100. So that's an interesting point to riff on. Okay, so both will feature Google's Tensor processing and a 50 megapixel camera, which bends images down to 12.5 megapixels during processing. The phones also feature an ultra-wide camera, and the Pro adds a telephoto camera and gives the selfie camera an upgrade with a wider lens and a higher resolution sensor. The Pro model is also physically larger with a bigger battery, but there's not much of a difference. So those are the differences right there. Okay, and the designs and colors, pretty similar to standard Pixel, at least in the past, interesting colors that you don't see from the other manufacturers, which I dig, both on iPhone, Samsung, and the other major Android manufacturers. They have Pixel Pass. So they announced Pixel Pass, which lets you bundle a phone in Google's preferred care repair plan, cloud storage, YouTube Premium, and Google Play Pass all in one monthly payment. The Google Play Pass it gives you like access to some games and gives you some other access like for free. It's interesting. I've never actually used it, but interesting kind of a subscription service. So Google, they're charging $45 a month for the Pixel 6 and $55 a month for the Pixel 6 Pro plan. And according to the company, you'll end up paying off your phone over the course of 2 years. And if you cancel Pixel Pass, you'll have to pay off the remaining balance on your phone. And if you're a subscriber of Google Fi, you'll save $5. So that's $45 for all those things I just mentioned. That's and for a new device per month. Interesting subscription business model. I dig it. The more they do to get this stuff out there, the more it shows that they're ready to play and they're here for keeps, which I like. More competition gets me fired up. So I'm pumped about that. So they say Google says all major U.S. carriers plus retailers such as the Google Store, Best Buy, Amazon, Walmart, Costco, and others will be selling the phones. So the big deal with the Tensor chip, it's very AI focused. So they built it in-house. And AI focused meaning they have, and we'll get into what heterogeneous computing means, but basically there's different parts of the chip that have serve specific purposes. So in the old days of computing, you have a CPU, a general purpose CPU that does everything you can throw at it, right? It does, but it doesn't do it very well. So or rather it's not optimized for it. As heterogeneous computing comes in, when we say AI chip, there's different parts of the chip that do specific things. So one part of the chip is good for voice recognition. So let's get into that. Voice recognition, one part of it's good at making photos less blurry and even automatically erasing unwanted people and other objects from the background. They call it, I think, Magic Eraser, that tool. Real-time captions and translation. So real-time captions when you're watching a video, boom, in any language it'll show up in text, and then a translation. If you put a phone between you, I can speak English, someone else can speak Japanese. They gave an example with Marie Kondo, which was interesting. They also, the next feature that Tensor allows for, what aids in it, they call it real tone. So a big part of photography the last several years, and what it's optimized for, it's optimized for white skin. So what real tone does is and one of the examples they said was it can make darker skin tones feel more ashy, or just not show them accurately. So what real tone does is it aims to show the full spectrum of the human skin color accurately. So they focused a lot on this. They had several different people speaking about it, and it was I think it's an interesting. You see this crop up from time to time in the tech world. So that's an interesting play they're going for there. And also a much better video capabilities. I used to record my podcast on my Pixel device. The iPhone has always had much better video, always. Pixel's been very close on the camera front. Actually, on some Pixels, the Pixel has actually been better than the iPhone with photos. But video, the iPhone has always blown it out of the water. It's never been close at all. They also have a new feature where if you're calling, you're waiting on hold, they have an estimate wait time on calls feature. So I assume they aggregate other people calling that same support line. You're on the phone with Delta Airlines, and you're like, "Come on, Bucher, my uncle got COVID, so now I got to quarantine. I got to cancel my flight." Boom, it'll tell you how long you're going to wait, and it'll also transcribe what the support line is saying on your phones. You can see when you're doing press 1 to talk to press 2 if your issue involves press 3 if you would like to, those things. If you forget what was said, do I need to press 1, 2? It'll actually transcribe it for you on the phone real time live, and this never leaves your device. It's happening on device. Okay, those are kind of the major, high level points of the Pixel. So it's live right now. You can go purchase it, so I'm very excited about this. So it's funny because people don't get Android in the United States. They don't get it. Literally, they don't get it. Meaning they don't buy it. I think even 85% of teenagers in the U.S. have iPhone. Like everyone's got an iPhone in the U.S. It's a very iPhone-heavy dominated market, unlike the rest of the world. There's just a really iPhone dominant culture in the United States, and that makes sense. The iPhone's an absolutely fantastic device. I'm using one. I'm recording the podcast with it right now. But I think people don't understand. Because so many people think, I'm just going to get the iPhone, and for a good reason. They don't even know what the other side's doing. They don't even know the good things the Pixel line does. The voice transcription has always been better. They talking to Google Assistant, like Siri compared to Google Assistant is a joke. Like you guys have no idea. It's crazy. I had a Pixel for several years. I had an iPhone 6, then all Nexus devices, then Pixels, and I just went to the iPhone 12 Pro Max. Well, as of like a year ago, or 8 months ago, and the iPhone's great. They're both great, but there's some things that like the transcription or the Google Assistant is just far superior. It's crazy. It's more accurate. You can do more. It's faster, and I know they promise that. And I don't have an iPhone 13. I haven't tried it, so I bet you it's faster on that. But the iPhone 12 at least, I got a 12 Pro Max. It's still a little. It's just not that fast. And they promise that with iOS 15 you won't need service, but I've even without service, I don't know if this is anecdotal, but it just hasn't felt faster. Even in low connectivity areas, it's like this isn't happening on device. It seems like it's still talking to the cloud. So I don't know what the deal is. That's one area. The other area I'd say that Pixel devices have absolutely shined is photography. For a while there, iPhone caught back up, but for a while there, you didn't even know it, but the Pixel device took better cameras. Everyone in the industry, many in the industry just thought, okay, the Pixel is the crown king. And I think the iPhone has taken that back over the last couple years, but now we'll see as people test the Pixel 6, do they reclaim the crown? And do they claim the crown for the first time on the video front? We shall see. I'm skeptical on the video front. You don't just... I don't know, that's tough, but Google has invested serious engineering, manpower, woman power behind their fucking computational photography. So they've, even with lower powered sensors, they've been able to do what other manufacturers have done with far more megapixels and far bigger sensors. So they really deserve a lot of credit on that front. Their always on listening feature. They actually had this with, and to be fair, this isn't that big a deal, but it'll just always tell you on the front, home screen of your phone to say if a song is playing, it'll tell you what song is playing using very little power. That's kind of cool, kind of gimmicky, not that big a deal. But this is so huge because, and Google even said it's Google's first real flagship. As I said at the beginning of the show, this is their first. They're putting their Hogan on the table. They're saying, let's fucking do this, and it's really good to see. It's awesome. I've been a Pixel fanboy forever, and I'm very excited to see what they do. And this is and we'll get to the interview later, but they're in it for the long haul. So this is gonna be a very interesting Google going forward. So I want to reiterate that the fact that the Tensor, Google has their own SoC. This is huge. This will allow them, and Apple's had this for years, since the A1 chip, since what was it, the iPhone 4? I think it was the iPhone 4 Apple released their first chip. They bought a company in 2008, CPU design company. I forgot what they were called, but they bought them, created their own in-house firm. And what that allows Apple to do, and what that's going to allow Google to do, is the beautiful thing of this is partly why I love following businesses so much, is because unlike a lot of things, they're like, they just have to think very long term. And it's very interesting to watch these strategies play out over the course of long periods of time. So what Apple has done with their A series chip, they have their roadmap out for several years. They say, okay, we're going to work on this, and this. Like, okay, 3 years from now, we'll have faster photography. 4 years from now, we'll have better video. 5 years from now, we'll have better transcription. And what they can do is they can go to the iOS team. They can go to the other guys, CPU, the SoC team. They can go to the other guys. They can go to the CPU. They can go to the software guys and say, yo, listen, in a few years, we're going to have a much better improvement in night mode, for example, in capturing night mode photos. Then we'll have better hardware to be able to do that. Then the software team can say, okay, we'll start working towards that. They can better plan their release cadence based on that. Their what they prioritize, their roadmap based on that. So when you own the hardware and the software, you can do things that other companies simply can't. On the Android side, most manufacturers use Qualcomm, basically all of them. There's some other Chinese, MediaTek is another SoC manufacturer. But the vast majority of Android devices use Qualcomm. They're all using the same chip. Samsung makes their own as well. But Qualcomm that's all they do. They make chips, okay? They don't create devices. So when you have all under one roof, all under one company, the device and the chip creation, that's a beautiful thing. You can do things that you couldn't do before. Okay, the other piece of this, and I feel like they've said this here. Let me just say this. I should have said this at the beginning. Let me say this. I am very skeptical that this will be successful in the next few years. They're in it for the long haul, and we'll talk about that in the interview. They're in it for the long haul, but I've been every Pixel launch, I'm like, oh, this is beast, no one gets it. I'm a neckbeard, no one gets it. No, I am very skeptical, and every year we've kind of taught all the Android communities, taught ourselves like, oh, they're doing a bigger push, they finally care. I've been beaten down so many times by this. I am very skeptical that this will actually reach meaningful adoption, and I say that as a defense mechanism. I want it to, but I've just been beaten down for so long that I just can't believe that it will. Maybe in 4 or 5 years' time, it will once they really start. Because in my mind, this is the first Pixel device, full stop. This is the first time Google has said, okay, boom, we're doing a flagship device. We're going to create our own SoC. We're going to do the damn thing. Okay, so that's why this is I view this as the first Pixel device, but I'm also I'm skeptical that this will be successful. Honestly, we have yet to see Pixel devices ship in any meaningful numbers, full stop. It's been so far, from a pure business standpoint, it's been an unsuccessful product. But they're invested for the long haul. They knew it wouldn't be successful in the first several years. They're working towards it. But now what they're doing, they have a partnership with the NBA. You'll be seeing that. They're going to be the official phone of the NBA. They're going to do a big marketing push. It's going to be available in every carrier. They're working more closely with the carriers. It's going to be more widely available than ever before. More marketing. I've kind of heard these things before, but they're now saying it, right? They're saying, no, we've heard you. We know we've been half-assing it. We're all in now. It's over. So that's pretty beasters. I'm excited to see what the deal is with that. Let's talk about RCS for a second, because this really grinds my fucking gears. So we've all said, green text, MMS, as soon as you add an Android user to your fucking iMessage, the whole thing explodes, right? Yeah, fuck Android users. No, fuck you, bro. Don't be an idiot. The reason this happens is because Apple has not decided to support what's called RCS, which is Rich Communication Services, which is like SMS 2.0. It has typing indicators, faster, file sharing, add and remove from groups, works over the internet. It's fast. It's like a regular messaging experience you expect. You go to SMS or Group MMS, sometimes images just won't share. Videos literally look like they were filmed on a fucking potato and be like, Android phones. Google and Android is leading the way on RCS adoption. They have their devices, and the carriers in the US, all of them are on board with RCS, and Android devices to each other support this. Apple needs to get off their asses and fucking do something about this. They need to support this, because if they do, it won't be iMessage, but at least it will be far superior to MMS. You'll be able to have Android and iPhone users in a group, and it won't be dog shit. So this is something that it's honestly very anti-consumer and pisses me the fuck off about the fact that Apple has not implemented this shit. Hopefully they will, and maybe they have some reason for it. They might have some, but they have said nothing, and I doubt they have reason for it, because this is just a worse experience in every symbol. They might say, iMessage is more secure. Well, actually on RCS, they're starting to roll out end-to-end encryption, which iMessage is not. iMessage is not end-to-end encrypted. Okay? They have the keys. The key leaves your device. It's not end-to-end encrypted. If you back up your messages on iCloud, they're not on your device. Anyone can read them. By anyone, I mean government subpoenas Apple. Apple can read it. Boom. RCS actually is more secure, much more secure than SMS. So if Apple cares about their users, care about the user experience, and not trying to be a monopolistic, asshole by trying to lock their people in, lock their users into the iPhone, it's, I just, people throw around the word monopoly. I don't think this makes them, they're not abusing their monopoly right now. They're just being dicks. Like, they're by not supporting RCS. It's just crazy. Anyway, let's talk about this interview. We're 18 minutes in. Let's keep it going. And by 25, let's keep them tight. Rick Osterloh, I think he came from Microsoft. I remember when he came, it's like, Google's going to do this. Like, Google finally is a hardware guy. And as a consumer and as an Android neckbeard, I was like, okay, it'll, he comes in, first year should be something. Second year, then I'm like, third year, okay, fourth year, come on. And I was demanding perfection right away. I was like, do something, bro. This takes a while to do. It takes a while to build up the competence within an organization to build hardware. Hardware is hard. Sundar Pichai has said that in previous interviews, I believe, on The Verge. Definitely on The Verge. On April 16th, April 16th, 2016, Rick Osterlow sat down with he started Google April 16th, 2016. On April 17th, he sat down with Sundar Pichai and said, we need to develop a chip. Sundar said, I agree. Let's do this. And thus it started this huge effort, which they poached some people from Apple. I think they poached some other people. So they have a solid team working on this project. So it's very, it's been epic. So they're just now starting to develop, I think, their vision and I think it's and I love it. It's taken several years, but they're on the path. Okay, we've already talked about the NBA deal. Rick Osterlow talked about that. That's part of the reason, he says, actually why the last 18 months of Pixel releases have been not that great. They've been meh. simply because they knew this big Pixel 6 was going to launch. They knew that Tensor was going to be, so they were just biding their time and just kind of, okay, the last 18 months have not been great, nothing groundbreaking. And now they're all in. Sundar Pichai was asked, okay, when he's been asked this before, but Dieter Bohn asked him, why are you into hardware? Why does it matter for Google? If you want to drive computing forward, it takes services and hardware. So that's the first reason. It takes services and hardware if you want to drive computing forward. I think Apple's the best example of this. It takes services and hardware. Apple's a great example of this, about marrying software and hardware. What you can do powerful things with software. Obviously, Google created a $1 trillion company basically off search alone, software alone. But if you really want computing in the sense of computers doing things for us in our everyday lives, a lot of that is, you need the software obviously, but you need devices to actually run that software, and you need those devices to have certain hardware capabilities to be able to release the power of that software. And that's what the Tensor chip is. That's what a lot of what Apple's doing. And the other reason they're into hardware is because they want to push the ecosystem forward. Sundar said, we want to push the ecosystem forward. And as Steve Ballmer said, when they released the Surface line, it's interesting because Microsoft and Google are in similar positions, where they offer software to other manufacturers. And Microsoft offers Windows to, there's plenty of PC makers, but they also make their own that competes with those PC makers. Steve Ballmer famously said, we're just trying to prime the pump with Surface. Because he was like, well, Surface, you trying to compete with your bros? No, we're just trying to prime the pump. And that's what Sundar is saying. I mean, obviously, yes, they're competing with them. Call it what it is. But Sundar is saying, we're also just pushing the ecosystem forward. Like, this is what we can do. And he thinks a rising tide lifts all boats. And they have a deep partnership with Samsung on the Wear, the new Wear OS partnership and some other stuff. So that's not going anywhere. But it is an interesting position to be in. Okay. Rick Osterloh said that the Pixel is now good enough for us to be investing a lot in distribution and marketing, and of course in the product and technology. So one of the things they said is we need to be able to create a sustainable business. If you as a consumer want Pixel to succeed, or if you want the Pixel line to still be around, it needs to be a successful business. It needs to make money. That's what the successful business, it makes money, full stop. So it needs to be able to make money, and they finally think they're at the point now where they can throw their Hogans behind this thing because they have a great enough device that they can say, okay, we'll make it, we'll be the NBA Pixel, we'll be the NBA phone, preferred phone of the NBA, whatever. They'll do that. They think it's ready. They think it's good enough now, which is absolutely epic. Okay. So Sundar Pichai says, to me, this is as much about building, and this is in that interview with Dieter Bohn, about building a deep capability to innovate in computing for the very long run. So he talks about, he thinks in terms of decades. He's like 10, 20 years. He said that a few times during the interview. He said 10, 20 years. They need to master the phone because whatever comes next, it will use. For right now, it's the phone. And maybe it'll still be the phone in 20 years. But maybe in 30 years, it's something different. And if they do a good job with the phone, that will allow them to be the next. That will likely allow them to enter the next thing. It'll give them, who knows? It's all very, it's tough to predict these things, but phones are where the innovation is right now, and that's where they've kind of matured, but that's where a lot of the putting computing down, they represent so many different facets of computing in one, AI, efficiency, photography, video, audio, transcription. There's so many different levels of innovation going on just in the phone that you can shove all that innovation and all of Google's services and all their amazing experience in AI and their amazing capabilities in AI. You can shove that into the phone and do amazing things. So they want to be there, and whatever the next thing is, that'll help them do the next thing. The Apple Watch, the reason the Apple Watch has no competitor right now, effectively no competitor, is because Apple's been doing an excellent job with the iPhone. They've mastered all this shit, small computing type stuff, and they were able to develop the Apple Watch. And part of that is them being able to build their own SoC. I think it's almost certainly we're going to see a Pixel Watch with them running their own Tensor SoC on the watch. And yeah, you need to be able to do that. There's this Mark Andreessen famously said in a Wall Street Journal opinion piece, he said, software is eating the world. Mark Andreessen is one of the foremost venture capitalists in the world. He works he's a partner at A16Z. He started Netscape, was one of the founders of Netscape, early browser. He's actually the first person to put the image tag in a browser. So you can see images in a browser. Yeah, I just learned that recently. He was one of the first person in his browser in Netscape to actually be able to view images, or at least support the image tag. So we've seen software's eating the world, meaning software is disrupting all these industries, or at least it's reinventing a bunch of these industries and saying, okay, before you did it this way, now do it with software. What we're now seeing is, and Benedict Evans, I believe, said this: hardware is now eating software, which means software has reached a certain point. It can only do so much, and if you want to really push the boundaries of software, you need to be a hardware company. You need to do hardware. You need to build hardware and chips that are purpose-built for the task you're trying to solve, for the software that's going to be running on them. So it's a very interesting thing how we went full software, now we've gone full hardware. Now we're going, that's partly why Intel's lunch has been eaten. Apple's building purpose-built SoCs. They completely miss mobile. Apple's building purpose-built SoCs. Qualcomm ate their lunch as well, but that's because, Intel just straight up said, we don't want to do ARM. They stuck on x86 architecture, which is more of a desktop PC-based old world type architecture. ARM is more start out. The reason it's in phones is because it's more power efficient. That's the main thing. That architecture is more power efficient. But now we're seeing that if you really want to push it forward, you really want to be able to transcribe live live audio to a different language live. You need to have the hardware to be able to do that. You can't be sending this to the cloud. It takes too long. The round trip time takes too long. What they've done is they've taken their models for voice recognition and other things. They've boiled them down and put that on the tensor chip. So a lot of the capabilities that they have running in Google's servers in the cloud, they've taken those models and they put them on the chip. So it's extremely fascinating. Another thing, which was interesting, South Korea recently passed legislation that I think they have to allow. They have to allow other payment providers. So app stores have to allow other payment providers. This is Apple's App Store and this is Google Play Store. And he said something interesting. Sundar Pichai did. He said, Apple sells the hardware, but then they also take 30% of the App Store commission. In-app purchases, things like that. Not in all cases, but in most. Google said, we don't sell most of the hardware. We give away Android for free. We need that 30%, or we need it more than the other guys. They're obviously talking about Apple. Because we need to make money off Android. We need to support the ecosystem. We need to make that 30%. So it's an interesting argument. I've always thought, oh no, fuck Google for doing that, fuck Apple for doing that. But no, there's actually a better reason. Apple has a better argument for why they need that 30%. Now, 30% is fucking high, but it's an interesting argument because it is very different. It's a different Apple doing it. It's different Apple doing it versus Google. Something to think about, which I thought was interesting. Okay, Rick Osterloh said, consumer electronics in general don't allow hockey sticks like you would in the web service business. It's a steady build, and that's how we're approaching the next several years, a real steady build. He was asked about, Dieter Bohn asked him about, is this going to be the hockey stick moment for Pixel? Everyone's just going to buy Pixels. And he said, no. It's much easier to do that with software. We are in this for the long haul. If they do better, if this is the best they've ever done, that's a good start. It needs to be the best, most popular Pixel. If it's not, that'd be extremely dark. They said they produce more Pixel devices than ever in preparation. Even with the supply chain crunch, they produce more than ever, and they're planning on selling more than ever. They at least have to meet that. And then what if Pixel 7, they do twice as good, or at least 50% better, and then 50% better, then they're boom, 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 boom. They're in it for the long haul. And that's the way you got to think about it. So as an Android neckbeard and, consumer for a long time, I remember thinking, rah, 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 rah. Consumers are very now, and they should be. It pushes companies forward, but take a step back, understand how hard the problem is, understand what they're trying to do strategically from a bird's eye view. Thank you everyone for listening. This has been, I'm super passionate about this in particular. This is really interesting stuff. Let me know what you think in the comments, honestly, on Apple Podcasts. Comment on this. Rate, please. Would really appreciate that. Comment on YouTube, like on YouTube, subscribe. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, Dick C. Lucas. On TikTok, just Dick Lucas. Reach out to me, dick@nogradient.com. Email me there. I'd love to hear from you. This is it's fun doing these podcasts, and it's more fun when people riff on it with me and give me their feedback, give me their questions, shit like that. So thank you so much for joining. This was epic, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace. You're not that guy, bro. Okay? You're not that guy.